All right, welcome everyone. This is Roger with Your Relationship Skills. Today I'm really excited. And the main reason I'm excited is because of the guest that I have today. She is someone that in the beginning, when I first met her, her and her husband were students in one of my classes. And then we moved from there to they became a client of mine. And after that, we became great friends. And then after we became great friends, I hired her to become my business coach. And so it goes that we have built such a relationship together that I know the ins and outs of her and John more than the average couple. And because of that, I thought her story is something that you all need to hear. And so, first of all, welcome, Barbara. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you, Roger. Thank you for having me.
You know, as I said earlier, that you have a story that people need to hear. Instead of me introducing you, I would really love to turn it around a little bit and have you introduce yourself to people and tell them the story of why you're here, why I introduced you to be into my interview in the first place. Could you do that?
I would love to. Thank you for having me. And I'm going to throw Roger for a little loop here, you guys,
Always
because
do.
before I dive in, I just want to let everybody on this call know what an amazing coach Roger is. Now, he doesn't know I'm saying this, and I hope he doesn't
No,
edit
I
this out.
don't.
But you're about to hear a story of a relationship with the one with me and my husband that was probably tougher and more. I know a lot of people have very tough relationship issues, and this one is way up at the top there.
Mhm.
And Roger was so integral to helping us see ourselves and each other. So I just want to just say that. And he's just such a warm, loving, fluffy, stuffy teddy bear. He's great. He works with so well. And again, I'm sorry, this is sounding like a plug, but I do need to say this because you really are a fantastic human being and a fantastic coach. So,
Thank
all
you.
right, I'll get off of that.
Yeah,
But
now tell them the meat of this thing. Tell the story.
so my husband and I, as I alluded to before, probably went through about as bad a period as anybody could go through, and culminating in something that was pretty shocking for him and for me rather, and included a lot of breakthrough moments for us. So the reason I'm telling you this story, so I'll start with the end at the beginning. The reason I'm telling you this story is because so many of us have these moments, and I now call them a supernova moment. And it's a moment when you have somebody has done you wrong. In my case, my husband betrayed me in a incredibly profound way I'll tell you about in just a minute. But somebody has wronged you, or an incident has happened, something, just profoundly bad luck or something, these moments that are so challenging for us. And I want to tell you that you have a choice. We all have choices. That's part of the human experience here, is that we have a choice, and we can take those moments and use them to stay in victim mode, right? So, oh, I can't believe he did this to me. I can't believe this happened to me. I'm so blah, blah. I'm so blah, blah. I'm so blah, blah. Or they're also the perfect opportunity to go through that moment and bust through to a real profound transformation that ultimately results in you owning and understanding the incredible power that you possess. And when I say the incredible power, I mean the power to create anything you can imagine your dream, whatever that dream is, whether it's to have a guy, a life partner, or a woman who is just loving and wonderful, whether it's to create a business, whether it's to have millions of dollars, whatever that is, you can do it. And so the point of this story is that these moments are an opportunity for you to become, to realize the power that you have to create that and become that person that can have whatever you want. So, with that being said, what happened in our circumstance? So, at the point of the story, my husband and I had been married for 18 years. And I'm going to preface this by saying that, and this was not something I realized at the time, but in hindsight, looking back on this 4-year period, that was incredibly challenging. That was our supernova moment. I realized that I married my husband because I felt certain that he would never leave me, right? Abandonment issues, and that he would never cheat on me. Now, it turned out that I was 100% right. And you could say 100% wrong.
Right. Yes.
Right. And, I made what's called a covert agreement, meaning I made an unconscious agreement when I married him. And that agreement said that he didn't know about, I wasn't even fully conscious of. And that was basically that you will love me unconditionally forever, and I will support us financially. So at that point, when we decided to get married, John had demonstrated what I thought was that he would not be able to take care of us financially. And I didn't mind. That was fine. I felt completely capable of that. And I will tell you, just a little side note, how interesting it is when people really fulfill our expectations of them. I mean, that just floored me later on. Anyway. Long story short, so I had a business. I created a business and got incredible success with it. My husband had what I affectionately refer to at that time as his auto repair nonprofit, because he'd had it for 6 years and never brought home a dime. But that was fine because I was making the money. I had the successful business until I didn't. Okay, so that was the beginning of the big supernova blow up. And it was in the economic crisis. So whenever that was, 2008, 2009. And I ended up losing the business, meaning I had to sell it basically for what it was worth because the bank stopped lending. And that put a tremendous amount of stress on us and me in particular, because that was our sole source of income. So at the time, we decided that I would now go to work in John's repair shop and turn it around. At least we had a vehicle for making money. It just wasn't making any money. But before that could really happen, I got this pesky cold that just wouldn't go away. And it got worse and it got worse and it got worse. And I kept trying, I was going through a tremendously stressful period because I was, selling the business and going through the paperwork and moving all the stuff and figuring out where to put all, 13 years worth of stuff from this warehouse, and getting sicker and sicker and more fatigued and more fatigued. And finally, what ended up happening is I got so sick one night, I started lapsing into a coma. And at that point, I have to say that our relationship was really strained. It was not a happy relationship at all. And to put it mildly. Anyway, long story short, finally, my husband took me to emergency. And it wasn't like just to show you how strained it was. Like he almost left me to die. Yeah, I'm laughing about it, but in hindsight, there was just a lot going on in both of us, and we for sure weren't working as a unit at all. We were reacting Anyway, I won't go into that. So what ended up happening is I went into intensive care. They pumped me up with steroids. What had happened is my adrenal glands had completely failed. And so once they got me alive again, they kept me in the hospital for a while and ran tons of tests. And eventually it was determined, to the surprise of all, that the reason my adrenals had failed and that I had almost died was that I was dying from the end stages of AIDS. So a middle-aged woman, married for 18 plus years, never, always faithful. Oh, I believe that my husband was faithful, was dying of AIDS. It really baffled the doctors. And my immediate explanation was that, before we got married, so some 25, 30 years prior to that, I had done some things that could have probably brought AIDS into our relationship. And I remember even at one point in the hospital, uh, apologizing tearfully to John for bringing AIDS into the relationship, because of course then they tested him and he was positive as well. And it was interesting because I just didn't notice how he averted his eyes so quickly. So after that, it took about 6 months for me to get my strength and my energy up. And when I finally did, I went to work in his shop and I was able to turn it around. It took me about 9 months. According to him, it was an incredibly emasculating situation, as you can imagine. And, certainly the tax didn't love having this woman come in telling everybody, sit down, shut up, I'm going to take care of this. But hey, I was this lioness. I'm like, I've got to get us a paycheck again, right? And I took it as long as I took it. I took the, disrespect and the fire, all that, when somebody is feeling shamed that way, they're going to turn and blame and shoot arrows at the object that they feel is shaming them or hurting them, right? We've all done this, both sides of the relationship. Even you. No. I don't know who you is, but I'm thinking that somebody in the audience is going, no, not me. I've never done that. But so about 18 months of that, I took it as long as I could until I just couldn't take it another minute. And I just stormed out of the shop and I said, screw it. I'll just lose everything. I don't care. Right. I can't take this anymore. And I knew, like, in my mind, John would just, like, the shop would close within a month. Like, he wouldn't be able to do it, and I'd lose the house. And it was interesting. I found myself for the first time ever realizing, holy moly, now not only do I not have a job or an income, because that wasn't my business, I have nothing, and I'm just gonna, be losing everything. But, you get to that last straw, and I'm sure a lot of you listening have had that, where you're just like, enough, that's it. And that was it for me. And John and I went to task lawyering up, and it was really coming to a head. We were acting so unconsciously, or reacting. And finally, when it really looked like this was it, like, boom, we were just going to repel, was a day that he and I since dubbed Truth Day. And that is a day almost exactly 2 years after I almost died, where he confessed to me that the reason I had AIDS, had almost died of AIDS, was that he had spent the entire 18 years of our marriage getting his needs met at a bathhouse. Can you imagine how that shocked my world? I had no idea. I mean, okay, so let me stop right here, because the most common question I get is, no, my husband is not gay. And the second thing is, we are extremely happily married now. But you can imagine, I mean, this was something that the possibility of it never even occurred to me. And so in the beginning, when I said that, I believe strongly that he would always be faithful to me, I was right. And he, in his mind, felt like that wasn't being unfaithful. to him that was a workaround.
Mm-hmm.
But I was left with this hole in my heart. I mean, when it just turned my world upside down, to such an extreme. It took that extreme to shake me out of this dream of who I thought I was and my identity. And it was interesting because 2 years prior, when I had been very sick, it took me about 6 months to heal my body. And what was interesting later on for me to reflect back on is that after this emotional injury, it took me about 6 months to heal from that as well. It was just flabbergasting. I don't know if that's a word, but it floored me. And I had lots of people, Roger included, that came to mind. Now, Roger, you were coaching us before I knew that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So Roger had been coaching us in the interim when things were really coming to a head. So looking back, John was living in just total shame.
Yeah.
And, often when somebody is living in shame, the most natural response is to turn it into blame. Mm-hmm. And you shoot those arrows, and he was shooting those arrows at me.
Yeah, big time. Yeah.
And so what Truth Day did for us, I mean, I don't know if all you guys listening can really truly appreciate how courageous that was for him to tell me. And not only did he tell me, he told his mother, he told his brother and sister-in-law, he even told his employees. So that was a really extreme example of loving ownership. And that's really what this is all about. He owned it. I mean, that is like the darkest night of the soul I can imagine. He was not proud of it. Like I say, he's not gay. He's and in most circles and most men's circles or whatever, if you admit to something like that, everybody's, oh, what? Ooh, they don't understand it. I didn't understand it, and so by him taking ownership that way, that gave me the space to take ownership for my dysfunction, my contribution to the dysfunction of the relationship. I remember at one point saying to him, so I don't take responsibility whatsoever for your actions, obviously, but I do take total responsibility for my part in the dysfunction of our relationship. Right? Because stuff like that doesn't happen in a vacuum.
Right. So, Barbara, one of the things that comes to my mind is most people would, when they found out that their spouse was cheating on them, let alone give them a life-threatening disease, what made you stay with John?
It's a great question. And again, and I trust me, in the beginning, I was like, wow, I don't know if I can stay married to this man or not. But what opened the door for that initially was his taking ownership, right? And that opened the door for us to, probably in the first time in our whole relationship, start talking to each other really authentically from our feelings, right? And he admitted to me that he thought the story he was telling himself was that I thought he was a total loser. Which made me go, what? Why would I be married to a total loser, right? So in my mind, I thought, I just assumed that he wasn't good with finances, and like that just wasn't his gig. And I was fine, and it's like, fine, you don't have to be. I'll take care of it, because he was wonderful in other ways, right?
Right.
But in the story he was telling himself, and this is an important thing for people to get to, the story that he was telling himself, the stories we tell ourselves, are most often related to wounding we had as a child.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And as he and I went deeper and deeper, and this whole experience has been such a gift to us. We've gotten lots of counseling and therapy and and soul searching within ourselves and just in the relationship as well. But so really, that story, like, me saying you're not good at this and that's fine, and you're a wonderful human being, how he interpreted it, which was interpreted based on his wounding, his core deep wounding, was, you think I'm a total loser.
Yeah.
Right. And what broke him through that was the fact that I was there working. This was probably 3 weeks after Truth Day that we were having this conversation. And he said, I can't believe, this is what he said to me. He said, I can't believe that you're still with me. I mean, meaning you're
Right.
still here. You just haven't, right?
Yeah.
Like catapulted, like, many people would. And he goes, this is the first time I ever really realized how much you love me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able,
shivers on that one.
yeah, he just couldn't feel it, and so now it was almost, you couldn't deny it, that I'm still,
Right.
after he's like told me why you almost died was my fault, and I'm
Right.
still there.
I want to interrupt you here, because you're talking about John, but these guys, I'm sure everybody's saying, well, how did you have enough strength inside of yourself to forgive John and move forward?
That's a great question. And that was the one that I was most concerned about in the beginning, right? It's like my world was just rocked, and I was just reeling at first. Like, I couldn't make sense of anything.
Like a normal person, yeah.
Like a normal person, right? And just trying to get my bearings, like, as if somebody spun me off into space and I'm just doing this. And it's like, wow, I got to grab onto something. And my sister-in-law actually was the first person that really helped me have a big aha moment. And I had run off to Mexico because there was a point in the beginning where it was just like too intense and I had to just get physically away. And she called me up and she was livid. She was so furious. And she was kind of venting her anger about John with me. This is a situation, and, ladies, well, men too, but, the easiest way out, I could have gotten so much support on staying in that victim mode. Can you believe he did? Right? Who wouldn't have come to my rescue on that?
Right.
And my sister-in-law was on that. She was like the first person that was really trying to step into that, because it was triggering her own insecurities, I'm sure, right? So she was going off, how could you even stay? He desecrated your marriage. A marriage is this honorable thing, blah, 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 blah. And she was just railing. And as she was doing that, it dawned on me that for me, I had to forgive him.
Yeah.
So it has nothing to do with him. So at that point, I didn't know, like, my biggest thing that I was trying to figure out at that point is, what do I do with the relationship? And I had no bearing. Like, do I stay in it? Do I leave him? And I had nothing to grab onto. And she gave me such a gift by helping me realize that, because that was the first time I realized that I have to forgive him for my sanity.
Right.
For me, right? If, I have big dreams for myself. I'm here in this life. I'm so grateful and blessed that I have this life, and I want to make the most out of it. And that, to be stuck as the victim of what somebody did to me, would just lead me down the path of a bitter old cat woman. And I realized the minute she said that, I realized, whoa, that is not my vision for myself. And that is not what I want out of this life. What I want, that's going to keep me from getting what I want in my life.
Exactly.
So I realized I can completely take forgiving off the table when it comes to deciding if I'm going to stay in this relationship or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember almost immediately after that calling him up and saying, wow, I just had a big epiphany. And that is that my decision on whether or not to stay in this relationship has nothing to do with what you did.
Mm-hmm.
It has everything to do with who you are now and how you treat me.
Yes.
And that's it.
I love that. Can you say that one more time? Because that to me is valuable.
Yeah, it's forgiving somebody is not about them. It's 100% about you. It's what frees you. What frees us. So deciding whether or not to stay in that relationship, I realized that forgiveness had nothing to do with my decision. I could take that out because I have to forgive myself for me, regardless. So it has nothing to do with the relationship, with the decision to stay in the relationship. The only thing then that really does is, who is this person now, and how does he treat me?
Yeah. And now, because I don't want to run out of time here. I want you to tell the people how long have you been together ever since that time there?
Oh God, he's the timekeeper.
I know he is. I knew I was going to throw you for a little bit of a loop because I know you in a timing wise.
It's well over 20 years.
Right. One of the things is, the last time I was at your house, John came over to me, gave me a great big hug, and he said, "Thank you. We're celebrating our 22nd anniversary, and we wouldn't have done that without all the help that we've gotten from the people in our world."
And you.
Yeah, and so in saying that, I do want to wrap it up with something here that really, to me, is truly important. Is there's a lot of people out there that have been in relationships where they've cheated, their spouse has cheated, or they've gone through some sort of turmoil, or they've been arguing for so many years that they don't know how to stop arguing. I want to hear from you what one tip you would give to these people that would help them move forward in their relationship.
The one thing I want everybody on this call to hear is ownership. So the one tip I would have for anybody, whether you're, in an unhappy relationship or whatever, is, what do I want? What do I want? Because that's all that matters. And if you crumble down into, oh, but I love him, it's like, excuse me, but I'll call BS on that. Like, so what do I want? And because again, I'll end this the way I started it. Every person on this call is an incredibly powerful creator.
Mm-hmm.
And you can be an unconscious creator,
Mm-hmm.
or you can be a conscious creator. So what happened for John and I, starting on Truth Day, it wasn't like the relationship just didn't go bang overnight. We had to work a lot, several years of hard work on that. But what happened on Truth Day is that we flipped from being unconscious creators to conscious creators.
Very cool. And one of the things that I know, because I know you, is you moved from, you didn't stay there very long, but most people stay there in that victim. You could have stayed in the victim of what John did and how John disrespected you and how he did this and he did that. But you took ownership. You took ownership and you took over your life again. And that's what really, to me, is valuable, and what I honor in you is you took ownership of your life.
Thank
And
you.
not only did you take ownership, now you're thriving. As I stated before, you're my coach. And I love that.
I would say that I'm thriving because I took ownership.
Yes.
It's because so you guys can have anything in the world that you want as soon as you start consciously creating. And the first step, so here is the another tip I will leave everybody with, is it's that moment when you realize that life doesn't happen to you. Life doesn't happen to you. John did not go and do what he did to hurt me. He didn't. He did what he did out of his shame, out of his wounding, out of his stuff. And when if somebody is cheating on you or whatever, they're not doing it to you. So life is not happening to you.
Right.
Life just happens.
Yeah.
We all are acting on our own wounding, on our own past, on our own desires. And you can take that one step further, and this is again what I'm calling that supernova moment,
right.
and say that life happens for you.
Yes.
Because those moments are the opportunity for you to bust through that and really open up a world of possibility for you.
Yeah. You know, that was such a profound statement that you just made there. One of the things that really is important to me to have people hear is that everything that goes on in our life is there for us as a gift. Now, you know that with you and John, there was a gift in there. There was the golden nuggets. Can you think of one golden nugget that you have because of what you and John went through?
Well, pretty much what I just said.
Yeah, I know.
You know,
that's why I want you to say it again.
Okay. It's pretty much just, you know, that realization that life isn't happening to you.
Yes.
Right? It's not happening to you. It's just happening. It's just happening. And when we realize that, fully integrate that, look, it's almost like, Raj, I don't know if you or your listeners are old enough to remember I Dream of Jeannie.
Oh, yeah.
Remember you rub the lamp and the genie pops out and she does a little, you know, and makes stuff happen. Right. Well, guess what? Every person on this call and you, Roger, everybody, we are all that genie.
Yes.
We are. You are.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Here's the kicker. It's like, imagine, you know, whatever that actress's name that played her, imagine her like jumping out of the lamp and not realizing that she's a genie. And she's just like, oh, how did I get in that lamp? And what am I doing here? And she might go on for years or her whole lifetime not even realizing all she has to do is this, and she can have whatever she wants. And the number one first step to realizing that is to, again, take ownership. Because when we don't take ownership, when we let life happen to us, that's giving our power away.
Yes.
So we are incredibly powerful beings, but we have to hold on to our power.
Right.
And then you can have whatever you want in any relationship. It may be with your guy or your girl, or it may not. And here's the really cool thing, too. Okay, so you asked for another thing.
See, I knew you were going to get it.
Is that what's really interesting is that when we shift, so when I shifted, so I don't know if you remember, but when I said John like was not able to make money, that just wasn't his gig, and like it went. So when and all the nagging in the world did not change him at all, right?
Yep.
So but here's the kicker: he changed.
Yeah.
He changed. But what did it take? It took me changing. It took me shifting. And as soon as there was some energetic something, now he's an incredible business person.
Yeah.
He is on top of his numbers. He's doing all that. I'm like, who is this guy? And here's the really interesting thing too, along those lines, is that when we were going through the really worst time just before Truth Day, and we were lawyering up and I was preparing to get divorced, and I made a list of everything that I wanted in a guy. Everything I wanted in a guy. John was none of them. right?
Right.
He was not being any of them. So about a year after Truth Day, maybe 2 years after, when we had really grown together, I happened to find that piece of paper. And as I read off each item, every single thing on that list was John to a T.
Exactly. Yes.
And so here's what will happen when you shift. Now, I'm not saying that this is how you're going to change people, because remember, people, they're got their own thing. They've got their own lessons to learn, their own life that they want. Right. But I can tell you that your best chance at shifting somebody is to stop trying to change them, shift yourself. So two things will happen. Either they will shift or they'll go away. You shift and the people around you will either shift or they'll go away.
Exactly. I love that, and I knew I could pull more out of you.
Thank you.
Yeah. In fact, what I want to end with pulling more out of you. I'm going to challenge you, Barbara. Yeah. I'm going to challenge you. I want to challenge you into creating a gift for the people that are listening to this.
I've already got one. I'll take challenge taken, and I've already got one. How's that?
Ooh, I love it. I totally love it. And so what I want to do is I want to give a link to people to that gift. And you said you already have it. Give us a little description of what your gift is for the people.
You bet. As I said before, it's these supernova moments that are so potent. They're so powerful for us. And there's a lot to navigate. And when I say a supernova moment, I mean, what time, usually when you feel like you've been wronged, or, it's just a person or an incident, or just life has took a crap all over you. Right. And so that can be a supernova moment for you if you decide to let it. So I have a little cheat sheet or an ebook, whatever you want to call it, called the Supernova Breakthrough Formula. And it's basically it's a checklist of the things to help you use that moment to break through. And because gratitude is a big part of that, creating a gratitude practice, I'm also including with that a gratitude journal for your listeners.
Wow. Boy, you took me on the challenge. Just like usual, you give me one step bigger. But I do have to close us off. So do you have any final comments that you want to make to the group, or any special tip you want to make to the group?
I just want to remind everybody again that whatever it is, first of all, dream big. Because you are that genie, and know that you are, and you can blink and have whatever you want. So dream big and just go forward in your life, removing the blocks that are keeping you from realizing your power as a creator.
Wow. Barbara, I knew this was going to be great, but I think this is life-changing for the people that hear it. And I'm really excited about that. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I mean, it's no wonder that you're my coach, because, I mean, you bring the best out of people. And I appreciate that.
Well, we coach each other, truth be known.
Well, in closing, I want to say to all of you, live in love, peace, joy, and appreciation. Take care, and be looking for the gift from Barbara